Yeah.
World Card Game Federation here with another episode of Decked, episode 25. We do have ourselves a rare treat. We're going to have us a preview from set 13, one of the very last. It's going to be a Saiyan style card. But let's talk a little bit about the state of Saiyan as we enter set 13. We're going to come across how Saiyan has had a couple of different mechanics that have largely played the main roles. A lot of those, like we said early on, were rejuvenation early on with Saiyan Empowered. A lot of anger gain to basically to the point where we have to remove NPPV as an option, that kind of mechanic. And then we look at Saiyan Rampaging, which let you have NPPV and let you have earlier access to it, by having you be able to level up with less effort, but also include the discarding mechanic that opened up a lot of different options with Saiyan Rampaging. Obviously very useful. Obviously cards terribly different, masteries terribly different from each other and emphasizing different play styles. Though Beatdown still stayed its relatively consistent focus. So we're going to say going up to the next one, Saiyan Dynamic, would have mostly, and I'm going to be honest, since it didn't really contribute a whole lot of anything, it doesn't add damage, it doesn't affect other factors, just that ability to be able to start on level 2, camp there. I've, relatively speaking, fought very few anger ramp decks of Saiyan Dynamic that were able to actually get anywhere, gain any real traction to be able to NPPV. As odd as it may sound, I think the only real factor in that one would have been not that Saiyan Dynamic is not conducive to NPPV, but more that I think the game suddenly abruptly dying upon the launch of that mastery, basically a month later, might have been more of a factor. Not a month later, sometime just after. So, that's going to drop us into, all of a sudden, I'm drawing a blank on Saiyan Oppressive. There we go. Saiyan Oppressive Mastery. Now, Saiyan Oppressive Mastery would again have that sort of, not Red's affection for anger manipulation. It would have been that beatdown focus, that ability to just simply keep pushing forward, to always put pressure on the opponent. So anger was definitely a part of Oppressive, but a lot of those decks leveled up a lot more slowly. Again, nobody's faster than Saiyan Empowered, but comparatively it was a little slower. But still the focus on beatdown, and the idea of simply giving your opponent less options with the whole skip mechanic, so that they have very less chances to respond before you have a chance to get your licks in. So all these are fantastic ideas, and all of them are remarkably different and effective ways to approach the same idea of getting a beatdown going. Now, if anybody remembers this part, this ought to be real familiar to you Cell players, to the old Villain Vegeta decks from a million years ago. Anybody, or Nappa. Nappa's another one. Pretty much all the Saiyan Villain beatdown decks are going to have a staple, or 3 of them. If anybody remembers, if you've built up a stage beatdown Saiyan style deck, without fail you have Turles ally and Nappa ally, Vegeta ally, well, not Nappa so much, mostly just the Vegeta, King Vegeta, and Turles, as their gigantic bonuses played off of each other and could, like we said, sway whole battles. But if one recalls, what was the quickest way to lose them? Because Saiyan has very little ability to control critical damage effects that the opponent puts out. Not too many Saiyan style cards will protect an ally once out, right? Because if you think about it, you say, okay, endurance is one thing. Saiyan is drowning in endurance and gives you the ability to weather most storms, so you don't expect to get critted. But what about deck archetypes that just pump out crits? It means they're going to knock out your allies, and one of your primary means to build up those giant haymaker shots with Saiyan. What does one do? I present to you Saiyan Skull Breaker! Physical combat. 0 endurance. I forget. There's some reason that those appear with zeros on them. I forgot. Someone's explained it to me, but I forget. Now, right off the bat, you guys are going to notice the parenthetical with limit 2 per deck. What have we learned as a group, gentlemen, when it comes to anything with a limit 2 per deck on it? It's probably nearly broken. That 3 might ruin the whole thing. So we're going physical combat. Again, keeping the same focus. Saiyan's always about putting that intense pressure on the opponent, making sure that every hit counts. So limit 2 per deck. You may, this one, like I said, this is our meat and potatoes here. You may banish this card from your hand to cancel a critical damage effect. Now, if you think about it for a second, this is the first for the game. You have spheres for events, and you have puzzler for cards when entering combat. But what do you do when you need to stop a critical damage effect? Nothing. You take it. And this is what Saiyan Skullbreaker is going to go ahead and do. And now you're seeing why it couldn't be 3 per deck, because if you think about it, you have your opponent pitching these key, even critical damage effects, mid-combat, and you derailing their whole plan. Okay, the rest of the card, of course, is a physical attack. And this is very similar to the set 1 mechanic about if the personality performing this attack has a higher power level than the defending personality. You guys remember that mechanic? Again, we're talking about the old becoming new. How sets probably 1 and 2. I don't remember much in 2, but definitely in 1. That Saiyan often had that pressing the advantage, applying pressure. Basically, if you get your opponent's stages down, you can generally start to whip them good, like Saiyan Clothesline, getting your double AT, that kind of thing. So it's going to have one of those built in. And we talk about old being new again. You guys remember how, I'm sure you all do, remember really early on, I want to say it was Random Number Gaming who reported, or it might have been Team Badman, I forget, reporting that their least favorite card, the least effective card the game ever produced, the most joke-like card early on, we're talking set 4 and earlier, would have been Vegeta's Anger. The attached card that basically always gives you the ability to be higher power level than your opponent. It's funny now, isn't it, looking back on everything? If you play Unleashed, you attach Vegeta's Anger, you say it's Skullbreaker, and you get the Destroy a Setup Driller ally effect. This helps to get past your opponent, who themselves keeps their allies from being critted away, or helps to keep their setups or drills from being destroyed. It's going to be incredibly helpful. Now, all I'll say about that one is the AT stages are a little minor in terms of damage, but that's probably not what you're using Skullbreaker for. It's teching into the cards this anti-critical damage effect, this anti-board effect, but into one card. You think about it, that kind of flexibility almost feels like they're two incongruent ideas, but to me, I'd rather have every card of mine be a toolbox. I'd rather have every single card of mine have the ability to double dip. I'm saying that Saiyan Skullbreaker is going to be a winner in my book and is going to find its way into many of my beatdown builds. Also, I got to ask you guys a question. Have you tried Villain Vegeta?